I caught my best friend watching 18+ material, and my first instinct was to call him shameless. Seriously, dude. I hissed, standing over his bed. Lawson didn't even flinch. He looked up at me with that maddeningly calm expression he always wore, the one that made him look like he owned the place. He did. "We're adults, Jay," he said, his voice dropping to that low, gravelly register that usually meant he was done arguing. "It's just a little stress relief. What's the big deal?" I paused. When he put it like that, it sounded logical, clinical, almost like he was talking about flossing or doing laundry. So I did the only rational thing a chaotic, boundaryless best friend would do in that situation. "Scoot over," I said, frantic curiosity overriding every survival instinct I possessed. I climbed onto the mattress, ignoring the way the air in the room suddenly felt heavy and electric. "I want to see, too." Lawson's eyes darkened, the pupils blowing wide, swallowing the iris. For a second I thought he was going to kick me out. Instead, he shifted, making space for me against the headboard. "Suit yourself," he muttered. But as I settled in shoulder to shoulder with him in the dim light of his dorm room, something shifted. Why exactly did the atmosphere suddenly feel less like bros hanging out and more like the seconds before a bomb goes off? And more importantly, why did I feel something distinct? Hard and unignorable, pressing against my thigh. The acceptance letters to the University of Washington had come in months ago. Lawson and I both got in. Obviously him because he was a coding prodigy who had been building apps since he was 12. Me, because I overachieved on my SAT, specifically so I wouldn't be left behind. We were supposed to be celebrating our first week as official college freshmen. I had sprinted across campus to Alder Hall, dodging the incessant Seattle drizzle. Ready to drag him out for pizza. I banged on his door. "Laws, open up." Silence. I knocked again. "I know you're in there. I can hear your brooding." Silence. Still nothing. Typical. I assumed he was either coding with noise-canceling headphones on or napping. Lawson had this condition, cataplexy, usually tied to his narcolepsy diagnosis. Basically, if he felt too much emotion, or sometimes just because the universe felt like it, his brain would hit the reset button and he'd power down. Doctors had prescribed him a cocktail of meds, but he still had episodes. That was why we were inseparable. I was his designated driver, his alarm clock, and occasionally his pillow. I punched the code into his keypad. Lock 0-8-1-5. My birthday. Don't read into it. It was just easier for him to remember, since I was the one always breaking in anyway. The lock chirped and I pushed the door open. "Lawson, I swear to God, if you're sleeping, I'm drawing a mustache on you with a Sharpie." I stepped into the room. It was dark. The blackout curtains were drawn tight, blocking out the gray afternoon light. The air inside was thick, warm, and smelled faintly of that expensive sandalwood cologne he wore. And something else, something musky. Lawson's shoes were kicked off by the door. His roommate, Elian, was nowhere to be seen. Probably at the library or visiting home for the weekend. From the bed, I heard a sound. A soft, rhythmic rustling, and then a breathy moan from a phone speaker. I froze in the entryway, my wet Converse squeaking against the linoleum. He wasn't sleeping. Lawson was propped up against the headboard. His face flushed a shade of red I had never seen before. A thin sheet was draped over his lower half, but his hand was moving beneath it, rhythmically, purposefully. The glow of his iPhone screen illuminated his sharp jawline and the sweat beading on his forehead. He looked up. His eyes, usually cool and detached, were blown wide, sharp with panic. And something darker. My brain short-circuited. My face felt like it had been shoved into a blast furnace. Any normal person would have backed out. Any normal person would have slammed the door, run away. And never spoken of this again. But I wasn't normal. I was Jamie Costas. And apparently I had a death wish. Lawson recovered faster than I did. That was his superpower, going from 0 to 60, then back to 0 in a heartbeat. He locked his phone screen and pulled his hand out from under the sheet, sitting up straighter. The tent in the blanket, however, remained aggressively visible. "Do you not know how to knock?" he asked. His voice was wrecked, deep, raspy, and vibrating with a tension that made the hairs on my arms stand up. It sounded like gravel grinding against velvet. My stomach did a weird flip, which I immediately blamed on hunger. I did not knock, my voice cracking like I was going through puberty all over again. You didn't answer. I realized I was staring at his chest, watching the way his t-shirt clung to him. And forced my eyes up to his face. It's the middle of the afternoon. Laws, I said, trying to regain the moral high ground. And you're watching porn. I'm a healthy 18-year-old male, he said, his tone defensive but his ears burning red. It's natural. You're shameless. I blurted out. Absolutely shameless. Lawson scoffed. A dry, humorless sound. Like you've never done it, I choked. That's not the point. So you're saying you're a monk? He raised an eyebrow, that familiar arrogant smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. I am a gentleman, I declared, crossing my arms. I don't get caught wanking in the middle of the day. Get out, Jay, he said, waving a hand at the door. Let me finish in peace. I stood there, rooted to the spot. My brain was screaming, leave, run, But my feet wouldn't move. There was a strange magnetic pull coming from that bed. Curiosity that was rapidly turning into a challenge. No, I said, surprising myself. Lawson blinked. No. We share everything, I said, the words tumbling out before I could filter them. We've shared bathwater, snacks, homework, and a Netflix account. Why is this different? I hit the light switch, plunging the room back into darkness, illuminated only by the standby light of his monitor. I marched to the bed. Scoot. Lawson went rigid. What are you doing? I want to see what you're watching, I said, trying to sound casual, like we were about to watch a Marvel movie trailer. And not whatever this was. Jay, don't be an idiot. Move over, Laws. I climbed onto the mattress, forcing him to shift toward the wall. The bed dipped under my weight. He was radiating heat like a furnace. I pulled the duvet over my legs, ignoring the intimacy of it, and looked at him expectantly. Well, unlock it. Lawson stared at me for a long, agonizing moment. His eyes searched mine, looking for something. Judgment, disgust, permission. Finally, he let out a shuddering breath. Fine, he whispered. But don't blame me if you get traumatized. He tapped the screen. The video resumed. I leaned in, our shoulders pressing together, my eyes glued to the tiny screen. The sounds filled the small space between us. It wasn't standard vanilla stuff. The production value was high, sure. But as I watched, a frown creased my forehead. Wait, I whispered. Where's the girl? Lawson didn't answer. His breathing was ragged. Next to my ear, on the screen, two men were tangled together. My brain screeched to a halt. I turned my head slowly to look at him. Lawson was staring straight ahead at the phone, his jaw clenched so hard, a muscle feathered in his cheek. He liked guys. Or just this video. My heart started hammering against my ribs. A chaotic rhythm that drowned out the audio from the phone. Lawson turned to look at me, his eyes heavy-lidded, dark pools of desire. Scared, he murmured. I swallowed my throat dry. The lighting is very artistic. God, I was an idiot. Is that all you noticed? He shifted and his leg brushed against mine. Electric shocks everywhere. Lawson, I needed to leave. This was too much, too real. I started to scramble backward, ready to bail. I forgot. My mom texted me. I lied, my voice high and thin. She needs help with the Wi-Fi router. It's an emergency. Code red. Before I could get a foot on the floor, Lawson's arm shot out. He wrapped it around my waist and yanked me back. I slammed into his chest. Stay. He groaned, burying his face in the crook of my neck. Don't go. Yet I froze. His nose was cold against my skin, but his breath was hot. Laws. He didn't answer. His grip on me tightened, painful and desperate. Lawson, seriously, you need to calm down, I whispered, panic rising. You're crushing my spleen. Shut up, Jay, he mumbled against my skin. Just shut up. And then his weight shifted. He got heavier. Dead weight. His head drooped onto my shoulder and his breathing leveled out into a slow, rhythmic pattern. The grip on my waist loosened, his hand sliding down limply to the mattress. I stayed frozen for a solid 10 seconds, blinking into the darkness. Lawson. No answer. A soft snore vibrated against my collarbone. He was asleep. No, not asleep. Cataplexy. The excitement or the panic, or the shame had triggered an episode. I carefully extricated myself from his limbs, my heart still racing. I looked down at him. He looked peaceful now, the tension gone from his face. Lawson looked peaceful now, the tension gone from his face. Which was unfair. Because I, meanwhile, was having what medical professionals would probably classify as a crisis. I stared at him. Then at the phone. Then back at him. My brain felt like a browser with 50 tabs open and at least 3 of them playing music. Lawson liked guys. Lawson had just watched a video with guys. Lawson had looked at me with those dark, impossible eyes. And Lawson had practically tackled me when I tried to leave. I pressed both hands against my face. Nope. The word came out muffled. Nope, nope, nope. Lawson continued snoring. Traitor. I carefully took the phone from where it had fallen onto the blanket and set it on his desk. Then I grabbed the bottle of water beside his bed. Then I grabbed his medication organizer. Then I sat in the desk chair and proceeded to stare at the wall for 27 minutes while my entire understanding of reality collapsed. Not because Lawson liked guys. That part wasn't the problem. The problem was that the moment I'd realized it, something inside me had reacted. Not with disgust. Not with surprise. Not even with confusion. Something much worse. Something that made my stomach flip every time I replayed the way he'd looked at me. Oh, that's bad, I whispered. Very bad. Catastrophically bad. Because Lawson wasn't just my best friend. He was Lawson. The person who knew every embarrassing thing I'd ever done. The person who had taught me how to ride a bike. The person who had once punched a 7th grader for making me cry. The person whose birthday I never forgot. The person whose favorite coffee order I could recite from memory. The person whose door I entered without knocking. Okay. That last one was less heartwarming. Still. The point remained. Lawson wasn't supposed to be somebody I got nervous around. Yet suddenly I couldn't stop noticing things. Like how ridiculously long his eyelashes were. Or how his hair always fell into his eyes when he coded. Or how warm he'd felt when he'd pulled me against him. I groaned and let my head hit the desk. The universe hated me. An hour later Lawson finally stirred. I heard the mattress creak. Then silence. Then. Jay. His voice sounded rough with sleep. I didn't turn around. No. A pause. What? I'm not here. Another pause. You're sitting in my chair. Hallucination. The mattress creaked again. When I finally risked looking over my shoulder, Lawson was sitting up. His hair was a disaster. His shirt was wrinkled. And the second our eyes met, a flash of memory crossed his face. The video. Me beside him. Him grabbing me. The color immediately drained from his expression. Oh. Yep. Oh. Double yep. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Then Lawson did something I had never seen him do before. He looked nervous. Actually nervous. Not annoyed. Not irritated. Not bored. Nervous. The realization hit me like a truck. Lawson Reed, human calculator, programming genius, emotional brick wall, looked terrified. Of me. My chest tightened unexpectedly. Laws. He looked away. You should probably go. The words landed harder than they should have. What? You should go. His jaw clenched. I made things weird. I stared at him. Then laughed. A short, disbelieving sound. You think you made things weird? His eyes flicked back to mine. Didn't I? Dude. I stood up. Dude. Jay. You watched gay porn. Lawson visibly died. I pointed at him. Then I climbed into the bed. His expression somehow got worse. Then you had a narcoleptic shutdown while using me as a pillow. Please stop talking. I'm not finished. Jay. I ignored him. We are both equally responsible for whatever this disaster is. A reluctant smile twitched at the corner of his mouth. Only for a second. Then it vanished. You're not upset? The question was quiet. Careful. Like he wasn't sure he wanted the answer. Something in my chest twisted. Lawson wasn't asking about the video. He was asking about himself. About who he was. About whether I'd look at him differently now. I thought about every year we'd spent together. Every stupid argument. Every late-night gaming session. Every time he'd fallen asleep on my couch. Every moment he'd been there. Then I snorted. Laws. What? If you think finding out you're into guys is enough to get rid of me, you clearly haven't been paying attention. For a second he just stared. Then his shoulders loosened. The tension he'd been carrying slowly eased. A tiny smile appeared. Real this time. Small. Fragile. Dangerous. Because seeing it made my heart do that weird thing again. Oh, Lawson said softly. Yeah. Neither of us looked away. The room suddenly felt very quiet. Outside, rain tapped gently against the dorm window. Somewhere down the hall, a door slammed. But inside the room, everything seemed suspended. Held in place. Waiting. Then Lawson cleared his throat. You still want pizza? The spell shattered instantly. I blinked. What? Pizza. He reached for his glasses. You came here for pizza. I laughed. A helpless, relieved laugh. Right. Unless you've changed your mind. No. I grabbed my jacket from the floor. Pizza sounds great. Lawson stood. For one terrifying second we ended up too close together. Close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his eyes. Close enough that he froze. Close enough that I forgot how breathing worked. Then he stepped back. I stepped back. And we both pretended nothing happened. After you, he said. I nodded. After me. We walked out together. Neither of us mentioning the fact that absolutely everything had changed. And neither of us realizing that this was only the beginning of the problem. Because once you start noticing your best friend, really noticing him, it's impossible to stop. The walk to the pizza place should have been normal. It wasn't. Everything Lawson did suddenly had my full attention. The way he shoved his hands into his hoodie pockets. The way he automatically matched his pace to mine. The way he angled himself slightly toward the street whenever a bike sped past, like he was unconsciously putting himself between me and traffic. None of this was new. Lawson had always done these things. The problem was that now I was noticing. And once I started noticing, I couldn't stop. This is your fault, I informed him. Lawson glanced over. What is? Everything. Very specific. I try. He rolled his eyes. That familiar expression should have reassured me. Instead, it made my chest feel weird. Again. The universe remained committed to ruining my life. The pizza place was packed with students escaping the rain. We squeezed into a corner booth. For the first few minutes, everything felt almost normal. We argued over toppings. He accused me of having terrible taste. I accused him of being emotionally unavailable to pineapple. Business as usual. Then the food arrived. I reached for a slice at the same time Lawson did. Our hands brushed. Just brushed. A tiny touch. Barely anything. Yet both of us froze. For half a second. Then a second. Then 2. My heart immediately attempted to launch itself into orbit. Lawson pulled his hand back first. The tips of his ears turned red. I stared at my pizza. The pizza suddenly seemed very interesting. Possibly the most interesting pizza in human history. So, I said. So, Lawson echoed. Neither of us continued. A long silence stretched between us. Finally Lawson sighed. We're being weird. I looked up. We are. I hate it. Me too. Another pause. Then, unexpectedly, Lawson laughed. A real laugh. Short and warm. The sound caught me off guard. What? You've looked terrified for 3 hours. I pointed at him. You passed out on me. You watched me panic. You broke my brain. His smile widened. You broke your own brain. Unfortunately, he was probably right. I hated that. The conversation loosened after that. Not completely. But enough. Enough that we could joke again. Enough that I stopped feeling like every word was a potential disaster. By the time we left, the rain had turned into a misty drizzle. Campus lights reflected off wet sidewalks. Students drifted between buildings carrying umbrellas and coffee cups. Lawson and I headed back toward the dorms. Halfway there, he suddenly stopped walking. I nearly crashed into him. What? Lawson was staring straight ahead. His expression had gone strangely serious. Laws. He swallowed. Then looked at me. His eyes held mine. Steady. Unwavering. Can I ask you something? The nervous flutter in my stomach returned. Sure. His hands tightened inside his pockets. If I'd told you before today. His voice was quiet. That I liked guys. I didn't breathe. What about it? Would anything have changed? The question hung between us. Rain whispered against the trees overhead. For the first time all day, Lawson looked genuinely vulnerable. Like he was bracing for impact. The answer came easier than I expected. No. His shoulders loosened slightly. I continued. You'd still be Lawson. A faint smile appeared. Then I added. I probably would have made fun of you sooner. The smile became a laugh. Idiot. Always. For a moment neither of us moved. Just stood there in the drizzle. Looking at each other. And once again that strange feeling returned. That awareness. That pull. The sense that we were standing on the edge of something neither of us fully understood yet. Then Lawson looked away first. Come on. He started walking again. We have class tomorrow. I followed. But this time my gaze lingered on him a little longer than it should have. And for some reason, when we reached the fork where our dorms separated, neither of us immediately said goodbye. We just stood there. Waiting. Like there was something else we wanted to say. Something important. Something dangerous. In the end, neither of us said it. Night, Jay. Night, Laws. He turned and walked away. I watched until he disappeared into his building. Then I went back to my dorm. Lay awake until 3 in the morning. And spent every second thinking about my best friend. Which was exactly when I realized I was in very, very serious trouble. The next morning, I made a terrible decision. Actually, that's not accurate. I made several terrible decisions in rapid succession. The first was checking my phone the second I woke up. The second was seeing a text from Lawson. Lawson, you alive? The third was smiling at the screen. I immediately dropped the phone onto my face. Ow. My roommate groaned from across the room. Can you not die before 8 a.m.? No promises. I picked up my phone again. Stared at the message. Stared some more. Then typed. Me, barely. 3 dots appeared instantly. Instantly. Which meant Lawson was already awake. Which meant he'd probably been staring at our chat too. A completely normal observation to make. Not weird at all. Lawson, good. Me, that's it. Lawson, what were you expecting? Me, a heartfelt declaration. The typing indicator appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then. Lawson, be ready in 20. Class starts at 9. I grinned despite myself. Me, knew you cared. No response. Coward. 20 minutes later, I was standing outside my dorm when Lawson appeared from across the courtyard. And immediately, everything got worse. Because now I knew. I knew he liked guys. I knew he wasn't just some abstract concept of a person. And somehow that knowledge had sharpened every detail about him. The dark hair still damp from a shower. The black hoodie. The glasses. The sleepy expression. The way his face visibly relaxed when he spotted me. Oh. Oh, that was dangerous. Morning. Morning. For a second we just stood there. Looking at each other. Again. Why did we keep doing that? Were we always like this? Had everyone around us noticed years ago? Was there a committee? A newsletter? I needed answers. Instead I got Lawson flicking my forehead. Ow. You were staring. So were you. His ears turned slightly pink. Victory. The rest of the walk to class passed surprisingly smoothly. Almost normal. Almost. Then we entered the lecture hall. And disaster struck. There was only one seat left in our usual row. One. I stopped. Lawson stopped. We both stared. Well, I said. Well, Lawson agreed. Neither of us moved. Students flowed around us. Someone muttered, just sit down, bro. Fair. Lawson finally sighed. You take it. What? No. You were here first. We got here together. J. Laws. We glared at each other. The guy behind us looked seconds away from committing a felony. Eventually Lawson rolled his eyes and slid into the seat. I took the one directly behind him. Problem solved. Except not really. Because now I spent the entire lecture staring at the back of his head. Which somehow wasn't better. Halfway through class, my phone buzzed. A text. From Lawson. I glanced up. He was facing forward. Completely innocent. I opened it. Lawson, stop staring at me. I nearly choked. I typed back immediately. Me, stop being stareable. There was a pause. Then. Lawson, that's not a word. Me, it is now. A few seconds later. Lawson, you're impossible. Something warm settled in my chest. I hated it. After class, we headed toward the student center. I was halfway through a rant about a professor who apparently believed sleep was optional when Lawson suddenly stopped walking. Again. He did that a lot. I turned. What now? Lawson wasn't looking at me. He was looking across the courtyard. At someone else. A guy. Tall. Blonde. Athletic. The kind of person who looked like he belonged on a university brochure. The guy waved. Lawson. My best friend visibly stiffened. The guy jogged over. And then. To my complete shock. He threw an arm around Lawson's shoulders. Casually. Comfortably. Like he'd done it 100 times. Something ugly twisted inside my chest. Fast. Sharp. Unexpected. The guy smiled. Hey, man. Then he noticed me. Oh. His grin widened. You must be Jamie. I blinked. How do you know my name? The guy and Lawson exchanged a look. A look. I narrowed my eyes immediately. What was that? Nothing, Lawson said. It was definitely something. The blonde guy laughed. And to my horror, he looked delighted. Oh, this is even funnier than I thought. What's funny? Nothing. Why does everyone keep saying that? The guy held out a hand. I'm Noah. I shook it automatically. Still suspicious. Very suspicious. Noah's grin somehow widened further. Which should have been physically impossible. Nice to finally meet you. Finally. My eyes narrowed even more. Noah. Yeah. Why does it sound like you've heard a lot about me? The grin became positively wicked. Before Noah could answer, Lawson stepped forward. Fast. Too fast. Don't. Noah looked at him. Then at me. Then back at him. And started laughing. My suspicion levels immediately reached critical mass. Because there was only one reason a random guy would find this situation hilarious. One reason. One horrifying possibility. I slowly turned toward Lawson. Laws. No. Laws. No. Have you been talking about me? Lawson looked away. Which was the closest thing to a confession I'd ever seen. And suddenly, for reasons I couldn't quite explain, my heartbeat doubled. Lawson looked away. Which was basically a confession. Noah immediately lost the battle against his laughter. Oh my God, he wheezed. Don't, Lawson warned. 3 years. Noah. 3 years of hearing about Jamie this, Jamie that. I blinked. What? Noah pointed dramatically at Lawson. This idiot has been in love with you forever. The world stopped. Completely. Utterly. My brain blue screamed. Beside me, Lawson looked like he wanted the earth to open and swallow him whole. Noah. Oh, come on. Noah. You literally programmed a backup alarm called J emergency contact. Noah. You use his birthday as your passwords. Noah. I stared. Slowly. Very slowly. I turned toward Lawson. His face was bright red. I had never seen Lawson embarrassed before. Not once. And suddenly everything clicked. The birthday code. The constant texting. The way he'd looked at me. The way he'd panicked when I tried to leave. The way he'd asked if anything would change. Years. He'd liked me for years. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. Noah looked between us. Then wisely backed away. Well. He pointed at a nearby building. I suddenly have somewhere else to be. And vanished. Leaving us alone. Silence. A long one. Finally Lawson sighed. You should probably say something. What do you want me to say? I don't know. His laugh sounded strained. Maybe that you're not interested. The words landed wrong. Very wrong. Because instead of relief, I felt disappointed. The realization hit me like a truck. Oh. Oh no. That wasn't good. That wasn't good at all. Lawson must have mistaken my silence. His expression shuddered. It's okay. The words sounded rehearsed. Like he'd practiced them. I know you don't. Stop. He blinked. What? I said stop. For the first time, Lawson looked genuinely confused. I dragged both hands down my face. Then groaned. Loudly. Jamie. I am having a horrible day. Why? I stared at him. You. Me. Yes, you. He looked even more confused. Which somehow made everything worse. I took a deep breath. Then another. Then said the stupidest, most honest thing I'd ever said in my life. I think I like you too. Silence. Absolute silence. Lawson froze. A student walked past us. A bird landed nearby. Somewhere in the distance, somebody dropped a skateboard. Neither of us moved. Then. What? His voice cracked. Actually cracked. I almost laughed. I said. I heard what you said. His eyes were huge behind his glasses. You like me. Unfortunately. For a second he just stared. Then stared some more. Then. To my horror. His knees buckled. Oh my God. I lunged forward. Lawson. Cataplexy. Of course. Of course the man short-circuited the second something emotional happened. I barely caught him before he hit the ground. You have got to be kidding me. Lawson was conscious. Technically. His body just wasn't cooperating. His face was buried against my shoulder. I felt him laughing. Actually laughing. The jerk. You passed out. A weak laugh. You confessed. That's your defense. Another laugh. I groaned. You are impossible. After a minute the episode passed. Lawson straightened slowly. Neither of us let go immediately. Then we both realized. And froze. Again. His hands were still on my waist. Mine were still on his shoulders. We were very close. Dangerously close. For once neither of us looked away. Jamie. Yeah. A tiny smile appeared on his face. The kind only I ever got to see. Soft. Real. Happy. I've waited a long time. My chest squeezed. Then I smiled back. Good. Good. Yeah. I stepped closer. Just enough. So don't make me wait any longer. Understanding flashed across his face. His eyes softened. And this time, when Lawson leaned in, neither of us stopped him.